For many years, we have all watched organizations like the History Channel, Discovery Channel, and others, even here on YouTube, talk about the quote-unquote mystery of Plato's Atlantis. There's absolutely no mystery to where it's located. But organizations like that have a lot of money, use slick graphics and editing techniques and music and audio and drone footage to draw you in. And they make no pronouncements. They talk about all sorts of different random locations all over the world. Some of them are inland on continents, like the ridiculous story about it being found in Africa. Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you, with fact, no slick editing, no drone footage, exactly where Atlantis was. Right from Plato's writings. I'm going to show you some things today that I guarantee you have not seen on History and not heard on Discovery. And they are all going to make perfect sense. Now, the irony of all that is Plato was quoted as saying, "As empty vessels make the loudest sound, so they that have the least wit are the greatest babblers." That could not describe those channels any better. Strange times are these in which we live, when old and young are taught falsehoods in school, and the person that dares to tell the truth is called at once a lunatic and a fool. Now, you're probably going to want to sit down. In Plato's writings, there is a description that is seen on the flag of the state of Florida. Now let's go to those writings real quick, confirmed writings, and let's read what is actually said. Let's start here with Google. Okay, but afterward there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your, pay attention here, warlike men in a body sank into the earth. All your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. That's a quote. Plato told the story of Atlantis around 360 BC. The founders of Atlantis, he said, were half god and half human. They created a utopian civilization. Now wait a minute. How can a utopian civilization also be warlike? How can a utopian civilization also be warlike? Utopians, people living in utopian existences, don't have a need for war, and became a great naval power. Their home was made up of, pay attention here, concentric islands separated by wide moats and linked by a canal that penetrated to the center. In the former, Plato describes how Egyptian priests, in conversation with the Athenian lawgiver Solon, described Atlantis. Now, Egyptian priests, speaking with an Athenian lawgiver Solon, described Atlantis as an island larger than Asia Minor and Libya combined. Egyptian priests would have known if Atlantis was on the continent of Antarctica, so that rules out the Eye of Africa, and situated just beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Also, and these are a lot of points, I know, but you have to pay attention to this stuff. In Timaeus, in fact, let's just go there. Let's just read in Timaeus. For it is related in our records how once upon a time your state stayed the course of a mighty host, which, pay attention, starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, was insolently advancing to attack the whole of Europe and Asia, to boot, for the ocean there was at that time navigable. For in front of the mouth, which you Greeks call, as you say, the Pillars of Hercules, which is the Straits of Gibraltar, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together, and it was possible for the travelers of that time to cross from it to the other islands, and from the islands to the whole of the continent over against them, which encompasses that veritable ocean. For all that we have here lying within the mouth of which we speak, is evidently a haven, having a narrow entrance, but that yonder is a real ocean, and the land surrounding it may most rightly be called, in the fullest and truest sense, a continent. Now in this island of Atlantis there existed a confederation of kings, of great and marvelous power, which held sway over all the island, and over many other islands, and also parts of the continent. See, this is the part of Timaeus they don't talk about on Discovery. Now, the flag of Florida. In Plato's 51 Clues, a location near the sea, a location outside the Pillars of Hercules, which many believe to be Gibraltar, the presence of elephants, mountains to its north, mountains to its north, a ring-like structure of the city, and most importantly, it had to be within roughly 5,000 kilometers from Athens. Now, this is what compasses looked like in the medieval era. This is what they looked like. They didn't have little hash marks for every little degree. They pointed in 8 directions: north, south, east, west, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. Here's another one from this era. This is what compasses looked like. So when they left to explore the New World, they sailed directly west. Now, this is an old hand carving of the state of Florida seal. It shows the sun rising over mountains. It shows the sun rising over mountains. This came from stories from the Timucuan Indians, that Florida used to be, now we know it today to be a flat plain, but that's just because of its relation to the sea. At one time, it had mountains. Here's a better picture. This is the seal of the state of Florida, as it was for many, many years. Mountains in the distance. Now, let's go to Google Earth Pro and let me show you something. The reason we brought all of this up about the compass. Here's the Straits of Gibraltar. I've drawn a line straight out from the Pillars of Hercules. This is a 270-degree line. This is directly west. As we know, 0 degrees is north, 90 is east, 180 is south, and 270 is directly west. This is what the course they would have sailed. We are going to sail west from the Pillars of Hercules. And you can download Google Earth Pro for yourself, or you can go to the web version, draw your own line. This is directly 270 degrees. If you sailed 270 degrees directly out from the Straits of Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules, where do you arrive? The first thing we described was an area with concentric circles. We have one large one here. We have another one here. We have another one here. And they said there was this great passage that you could sail in. Well, here's one. Here's another one. Now imagine all of this area here lifted up. These would all be mountaintops, and remember it said mountains to the north. Well, if this is west, this is north. Florida is right here. And what do we see on the seal of the state of Florida? Mountains. Mountains to its north. The Bahamas would have been mountaintops. What you see as islands at one time were mountaintops. And when you zoom out and you look at this region, in fact, let me spin this around and show it to you from their perspective. This is what they would have seen. What happened here was catastrophic. These giant trenches, this huge scooped mark right here, all of this is evidence. And it said, island concentric circles that were backed up to a continent. And that beyond, there was, in the truest sense, an ocean. Virtually everything describes one place. This is slam dunk. You have the passageways, you have the concentric circles, you have the direction, and we have evidence of mountains to the north, which would have been on the right hand of anybody sailing directly west. They didn't sail 226.8 degrees or 231.5 degrees back then. They sailed cardinal directions, west, east, north, and south. Sometimes the in-betweens, but primarily in those directions, because that's the best technology they had. Now, let's talk about this utopian society for a minute. Utopian might have meant a blessed life. Pedro Menendez, when he came to Florida, described a fountain of youth, waters that when you drank them had healing properties that helped you regain your youth. And this was something that was described by many, many, many people. And I have proof of this. This is a ancient Indian burial ground. When they've examined the bones of these ancient Indians, they were some of the healthiest people that ever lived. Their counterparts in Europe were far smaller, far weaker. Also, right here in the state of Florida, right down the road, there are graveyards of people that lived at a time where there wasn't soap, there wasn't dentists, there wasn't toothpaste, that they weren't, you got your teeth pulled at the barber, if you even had money to. 1820 to 1898, this person lived 78. That's a long life. 1842 to 1928, 86 years old. And here is the kicker. Lewis Wilford, PV2, North Carolina Regiment, Revolutionary War, born 1751, died 1849. 98 years old. Utopian might have meant something very, very different. People come down here and all of the rules change. All of the rules change. What do I mean by that? See this woman right here wearing the one piece, the black and white? 79 years old. 79 years old. Living to 100 in Florida is not unheard of. In fact, it's very common. Coming from the north, coming down here, and all of a sudden finding your youth again, that is basically Florida canon. Pardon me. (1565), people came here and began immediately telling stories of having found paradise. They didn't talk about paradise in Jamestown. They didn't talk about paradise in Plymouth Rock or paradise in Boston. They talked about it in Florida. Something that they were willing to fight for. And the French and Spanish fought over Florida for hundreds of years. This is the Fountain of Youth. They have it protected fairly well. This is the park in St. Augustine. Now, I'm sure a lot will go, okay, what's with the bikinis again? Why are you showing this, Maki? Well, who remembers Girls Gone Wild? You know, that started in Florida. What does that have to do with any of this? There's just something different about this place. People lose their inhibitions. People just naturally feel better, more confident, and more free. And that's the reality. And that's what this is really all about. When people say, hey, we're taking a road trip. Oh, where to? Des Moines. Oh, well, have fun with that. Oh, but don't worry, next month we have another one coming up. Oh, where to? Cincinnati. Oh, yeah, all right, well, whatever. Oh, but next summer, Bonita Springs. I'm in. Naples. I'm going. Everybody comes here, and sometimes people lose their mind with a little bit of freedom. I used this image yesterday for a reason. The vast majority of these things, other than the broccoli, you really can't source well up in the north. But you can down here. And honestly, I don't have any other explanation for it. There is just something different about Florida. And it's not just Disney, and it's not just sunshine, and it's not just warm weather. They have Disney and sunshine and warm weather in California, and it is not the same place. It is not the same thing. They have sunshine and pretty girls in Texas, too. There's just something different about Florida and this whole region. And I believe it goes as far back as Plato. This area that he described is bounded on the north by Florida, bounded on the south by Venezuela, what we know to be the Caribbean. Because in so many ways, throughout history, it has been described as paradise on earth. The Mediterranean, the French Riviera, is a beautiful place, but they never described it as paradise. Greece has very temperate weather, but they've never described it the way they described Plato's Atlantis. Why would there be mountains on the Florida Seal? This image came right out of old Indian stories that had been passed down for hundreds of years. And this correlates directly to everything we read from Plato. So, that is my pronouncement. I'm not going to debate about places in Asia or places all over the world. It was described very clearly. And I guess I'll end the video by, I'll take this line off, I'll bring up the tools, and I'll show you this with the ruler. Start here. As you can see, up here, I'll draw a line. Roughly, let's see, I'll get it right on. Directly west. Let's see if I can adjust the light here so you can see it. 270 degrees. Right out of the Straits of Gibraltar, takes you right to what Google Earth Pro shows, concentric circles with gaps, with Florida directly to the north. I'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.